Welcome back to the Dialectic Space Podcast. It's with me again, Ibrahim Asonko, and my guest today is Dr. Ousman Gajigo. Dr. Ousman Gajigo, welcome back to the Dialectic Space Podcast. As you may recall, he was one of the first individuals who, when we started these platforms, came on and we had a conversation that primarily focused on his life, his upbringing, his education, his work, both from the Gambia and all the way to University Columbia in the United States, and also at the World Bank, and some of his research and consultancy work. And we dive really deep into it. And the video is on our YouTube. You can go check it out. Today, I've asked him to come in light of some really important political developments that has to do with his party in the country as we head into the 2026 December presidential elections. Gajiko, welcome back. How are you doing?
Thank you, Songo. Thanks for having me, and always a pleasure to watch your program, and honored to be back again.
Thank you so much, and also thank you once again for accepting to come on a very brief notice. So you've been very busy with your party, Patriotic Progress Alliance, otherwise called PPA, and
Yes.
recently, I think as of yesterday, news reporting came out that you've gone into a merger, or otherwise called a partnership with the veteran politicians party, Bakari Bunja Dabo, who used to work in the First Republic of the Gambia. If you would walk us through how this came about, what are some of parts of this agreement or partnership, and what motivated or sort of inspired this partnership?
Thank you. Yes, this is something that has been on the works for a while, but it's also, I think the reasons that led to this are not, they are quite obvious. As everyone has known, there's been a proliferation of parties and movements in the country. And we all know we can't have a situation where every single political party right now is going to field its own candidate. It's not going to work. I mean, even if it does happen, it's chances are that the field will be too crowded. And I'm not. I've never held on to the belief that there must be a coalition for a change to happen. But I think the reality is we cannot escape the fact that having a coalition increases the likelihood of a change happening.
Mhm.
So with that in mind, we've always held the belief that a coalition would be useful. What is important is the manner in which the coalition happens. Is it driven by certain shared principles? What is its goal? I mean, the election that will be coming up in December 2026 is not the be all and all. The state house is not the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is not who sits in the state house in Marina Parade, but what comes after, the day after, the years to come, the changes that we need in this country for democracy to be consolidated. Because we had a transition that has been aborted in the process. It hasn't been completed, and that transition needs to be completed. So here, many people have a role to play. Many entities have a role to play. So we've always been championing this and advocating this role of political party. This proposition that political parties need to come together, and the same thing. We know that in a consolidation or in a coalition or an alliance, whatever you call it, we have to have a. Not everybody can be a leader. What is important is we have a leader who is going to put the nation on the right path. If that doesn't have to be me, it could be somebody else, but it has to be the right person. And if the right person is selected, we are ready to really support the process. And GFA, as you noted, these are veteran people who are running there. People know their background. Bibi Dabo is not a stranger to anyone in this country. Here is somebody who served decades in parliament, decades in government, but does he have like tons of compounds? No.
Yes.
I mean, it's not in the Gambia. In today's Gambia, you serve 1 year in government, 2 years government, you already have 10 compounds. Nobody knows where they come from. Your assets will quadruple within 1 year, that is completely out of proportion to the income that you earn. So the kind of people you go into alliance with, or you want to go into battle with, is very important. As you know, for us, just like this coalition talk, when we met with GFA, there are key criteria we were looking at, and thankfully we share. There was no issue. For instance, we share the same goal. The goal again is not just who goes into the state house, but what changes happen.
Mhm.
The other thing also is that each of us are working towards that consolidation, and that consolidation, having a parties come together on shared principle and common goals. And this is something that GFA, led by its leaders, they also have been championing. So given what we know about them, given what we know about their background, the integrity of their leaders, their goal, the principles that we share, it was only natural that we come together so that this task of forming a national alliance in the lead up to the 2026 election can be simpler. So that is essentially how this thing came about.
So, has it sort of, in terms of the name for what this merger is going to look like,
Mhm.
as we go into the December elections, have you guys agreed on that in principle? What's is guys going to still maintain the institution of your parties and just form a team to challenge the incumbent Adam Barrow? And then is there going to be a name that will be attached to that in terms of our coalition 2016? Or is there any development in that regard?
You mean the merger between PPA and GFA?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. We believe that this is going to be the first step towards a greater consolidation in the future. So for the time being, it's basically a fusion. It's a
Okay.
complete merger between PPA and GFA. So this new entity will still retain the name GFA. This one is simple. They are a registered party that have been in existence for about 6 years now, 5 to 6 years, and we are still, though we are quite advanced, we didn't complete our registration process. And if you're
Okay.
going to have to change the name, you have to go back to IEC. But already they are established. They have their structures as they are. Their principles, these are things we had a careful look at. These are not in contradiction with the principles that we have. In fact, they are very consistent. They are very consistent with the core values that we have. But we are also, we are not coming in as individuals. We are coming in as an entity. So
Okay.
there are also some things we bring to the table. So this new GFA that incorporates PPA will incorporate many things that PPA already has in existence, some of its structures and some of its documents. So it's really a merger rather than just a bunch of individuals coming along. But just to clarify, the new
Mhm.
entity will still be called Gambia for All. So
Okay.
there'll be no PPA in the name, and the leader of GFA will remain Honorable Bakari Bunjadab.
Okay. I think that's an important clarification, and thank you for that. So, people always often make the joke that since you came into the political scene, there is almost this constant thing people associate you with UDP, or even to say that why haven't you joined UDP? Because for either rightfully or wrongly, I think in many ways, whether because of what you talk about or what you write about or the things that concern you in terms of your public value, people associate you, or in fact, people sometimes publicly say Gajigo should have joined UDP. But that's not new to you. Bakari Bunjadawa is another person who, if you understand how UDP was formed after, 1996, after the Gambia banned PPP, you understand a lot of people who were in PPP became part of UDP as well. So he's another person that most people would in fact say that he should have been part of UDP. Previous elections, I think there were ongoing discussions for him to be part of UDP. But I raised that specifically to ask you that the more people think that you're coming closer to UDP, is the more you go further away elsewhere. But
Well,
uh, do you still experience this part where people make the case to you that you should join the perhaps the biggest opposition party in the Gambia, which is UDP, and now you've gone to Bunyadabo? Are you guys in fact considering that possibility at all, considering how important it is for opposition parties to come together?
Well, like I said, one of the key criteria for us in discussing with any political party is whether they are open to the formation of a coalition, a grand coalition.
Mhm.
So this is something that GFA, before we joined them, have been open to, and they've been very active in discussions. This is something we are also quite open to, and we've been very active in such discussions. So both of these parties that are now one single entity believe that it is important that parties come together, and we need to have structures in place and to make sure that this thing happens. And will we want to see a situation where UDP is part of a coalition? Absolutely. So right now, right now that hasn't, it's still early in the process. It's quite possible that all the parties will come together. It's quite possible that some or one or some of the parties may decide that the coalition is not, doesn't work in their favor. But I think right now it's too early to draw the conclusion. So as somebody who is still part of the process, I hope that, after the necessary negotiations, the necessary assurances, whether it's UDP or other parties, they'll all come to the table, and parties will resist the temptation to try to go at it alone. So for me, I think this is the natural process. It's not a question of joining UDP or not. For me, the key here is, UDP. Yes, I mean, a lot of people probably assume I was in UDP, given that I have been a major critic of this government, just like UDP officials, and I've shared platforms with UDP members, executive members. Actually, last election, I voted for UDP because I wanted change. But also, I'm not a UDP member. I've never been a registered member of UDP, never held any official position there. I happened to vote for UDP because of at the last election, there was no coalition, and they were the main opposition. But I do believe that we have an opportunity as a country to increase the chance of effecting the change that couldn't happen last election. And this time we can make sure that we avoid the failure of last election by coming together. So that's why for me and for people in PPA who have been with me, and also people in GFA, we believe that we shouldn't just quickly abandon a coalition, and we shouldn't have a precondition in coalition that makes it other groups to come in. We need to sit down, put the interest of the nation in front, and be open to a negotiated settlement that can make a unified opposition a reality, so that the change that we are all fighting for can happen.
You mentioned a very important point. There's a precondition for partnerships or mergers or coalition talks publicly, to so much extent that releasing a statement of these are our conditions if you want to get into political cahoots with us. Does it make it harder from your vantage position, because you've already led a discussion and successfully merged with another political entity? Does that precondition make it harder for people to come together?
It does make it harder. I think, though I don't think it closes the door completely, but having a certain condition, and a condition which is really the main thing that really needs to be negotiated. Because right now, I mean, when you talk about the coalition, to put that coalition into effect, the key negotiation, the really contentious part, is going to be how you select that flag bearer. And if that precondition is stated publicly in a way that rules out any negotiation on that part, it's basically saying that there is no basis for negotiation. So I think, to answer your question, yes, it makes it harder. It doesn't completely rule it out. Like I said, as long as there is time, there's always an opportunity for people to for parties to soften their stance. Upon reflection, upon consideration, but it does make it harder. Undeniably, that one is a fact. It does make it harder, because in any negotiation, the mechanism for selection of flag bearer, it is the main is the basis of the negotiation. And that one, I think, I hope parties will refrain from, stating preconditions that basically remove any basis for any further discussions.
So clearly, Dr. Gajiko, you have again demonstrated how important it is for people to see Gambia beyond just becoming the leader. And I've always argued this. I think if we enter into politics with the principal focus of becoming a leader at all by all means necessary, it skews that ingenuity of engagement, especially from either members of your party or people that are outside of your party. And so for you to merge with another political party, even though you are your own political entity, and care very less about the leadership, because you could stay where you are, right, and still continue and still become a flag bearer for your party, even though you're still a new party. You have a long shot. I mean, it's going to be a long shot to the presidency. But I bring that up basically for you to speak very briefly about the importance of political entities to understand that you don't always have to be the leader, the be all and the be all and the for all for change to happen. And sometimes you can also lead from behind. You just have to be within the right institutions, within the right sort of position to push people who could in fact be ideally be pedestaled to bring your vision into reality. How significant is this for you as you enter into, I mean, even during the negotiation process to where you are right now? Is this so important for you to become the leader at all cost, or is not a thing that you worry so much about? It's more about how do we make sure that we move the Gambia forward?
So this is a key point, and in many ways, I think it might be fair to say it's probably the most important point, because at the core of it is like we are trying to select the next leader of the country. Yeah. So I think it would be a major problem if any leader of political parties, we all approach this saying that it has to be them. I think in general, Gambian electorate should be very mindful of any leader who is too focused on being the leader, being the top person, because we need to recognize the fact that being a leader or sitting at the state house is a means to an end. It's not the ultimate aim. I mean, the question is, what can you deliver when the person sits there? And the reason why we have all of these problems in Africa about people not respecting term limits, people sitting in power forever, for eternity, or trying to make it a dynasty, is because of this fundamental lack of belief that there are other people who can do the job besides themselves. One shouldn't really be too full of themselves that to think that it has to be only them, and if they don't succeed, then the country is not going anywhere. I mean, that's something I hope we reach a point where people take it for granted that there are innumerable, number of their compatriots who can do the job. So I hope I'm still on.
Yes, you're on. You're on. Go ahead.
Okay,
Sorry.
I didn't see you there for a second. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes, so it is very important, I think, any leader to first understand, to first step, you reflect on what the ultimate goal is. Why are you going into this political arena? It is not to achieve political power. That is a means to an end. The end here is what is in the Gambia's interest. And if in achieving that goal, like for instance, this goal we are trying to achieve, this change in 2026, if moving things forward or is going to require, having Ibrahim Sonko as the flag bearer, then one should be, I think, magnanimous enough to say that, okay, let's see what we can do to make sure that Mr. Sonko succeeds in this position, and what role can I play? Maybe I can be I can be working in other parts of the government, or maybe I can even be an outside advisor, or maybe the best thing I can do in certain environment. If Mr. Sonko do all the things that I've been fighting for, I don't even need to be in government. I can be in the private sector, because you can help your country through various roles. roles. You don't have to be the head of state. You don't have to be in cabinet. You don't have to be in National Assembly. You don't even have to be in the public sector. You can be in civil society or you can be in the private sector, because the ultimate goal is what is in the nation's long-term interest. So that's why one being the ultimate leader or being the flag bearer shouldn't be the overriding objective. And we should, I think once we are quite clear what the ultimate goal is and certain principles, making sure that the right person is in the right place. If the person who is selected is capable, has integrity, and has the interest of the nation at heart, or if we want to use a word, we can say has its patriotic at heart, then that person, if in that very moment somebody say that to me, then I don't have any problem taking a back seat. Leadership is not always being in front. Leadership can also be demonstrated by stepping out of the way or helping from behind.
So PPA has also been very busy, especially between December all the way to January. You've traversed the length and breadth of the country to talk to the people and to listen to the people. I think that's a very important part. I think we focus a lot on talking, and there's not a lot of listening. And I think listening is what is the most fundamental thing that a lot of public officials, including politicians, should do to really get in tune with what the people are saying. And so you've been around the country a lot, and I was curious to understand what is it that you found out? What is it that you've understood? And you've been to places, you've also posted it on your Facebook, including places like Sapu, including places that used to be one time very important sort of resource for the country in terms of what they bring. These are places that have become white elephants for lack of better expressions. Nobody is using those things. But also, I think getting into very remote part of the country to understand what is happening as you seek public office in the Gambia. What have you found so far?
No, I mean, quite a lot. It has nothing more educative than going around the country. I mean, this would be it doesn't even, I mean, it's not, one doesn't need to say it, but I think one of the requirements of, that we should have for any candidate, if you are going to run for office, is to know the country very well. Yes, we have a small country in terms of population, in terms of area, but there's still a lot of heterogeneity in the country. And if you are going to, if you want to be given the privilege to be a leader in a country, you need to make sure that even the people who are most deprived, the people who are most destitute, the ones that are most remote, you cannot satisfy yourself just being in the urban areas. So when you go around the country, you hear different things. The good news is that there are a lot of common themes that you come across for instance, the cost of living. And this is why I hammer on agriculture quite a bit, the importance of agriculture in our nation's development, because cost of living is essentially comes down to food security, and food security is a major problem. And this is something that's not anecdotal. GBOS periodically does food security survey. The latest one actually shows that 66% of Gambians households are food insecure. So that's 2 out of 3 Gambian households are food insecure, and the majority of those are in rural areas. And the thing to address that, so there's a silver lining here. That the silver lining is that addressing food security, when done in a proper way, can also kickstart the economy and boost the economy, not only for those people who are food insecure, but for young people everywhere, rural or urban, but also economic diversification and transformation across the whole country. This is why agriculture is particularly important, and this is why it's really tragic that we have poor leadership currently, and the guy sitting there seems much more involved in political campaigning than actually running that sector. So for me, while I've been to places like Gunjur, where concerns there are slightly different from areas of Fuladu, where Sapo is located, or parts of CRR, or parts of Wuli, but let's say the main livelihood activity in some areas in Gunjur that I visited might be fisheries, while in Sapo areas might be rice cultivation. The common thread among them all is the lack of economic productivity that we have in all our sectors, especially in the primary sectors, and how those are the primary, the proximate causes of food insecurity in the country. So, but these are things that you get a good picture of unless you go around the country. So, while the overall, the common thread that runs there seems like one like how you address food security in Gunjur is very different from how you address food security in a place like Brikamaba. So that's why going around the country, understanding the heterogeneity, understanding the listening to people themselves through their own mouth, let them show you the difficulties they are having in their rice fields, in their groundnut fields, in their wheat fields. It's very important. This is what we have been doing. I can tell you between October and January, we visited over 100 women gardens across the whole country, every region in the country. And in each of these gardens, we sat down with people that are there. We listened to the problems that they have. It is depressing to hear the same problems everywhere, but again, the silver lining is these are all problems that can easily be tackled as long as you have a government that is not only that you have a government that has the appropriate leadership, so a government that is serious about addressing the sector. And it doesn't need a single button from donors outside. It just requires seriousness and having the right people in the right portfolios.
I think what could make the case that you're always, at least mostly, very critical of the government, and you don't shy away from that, and your criticisms are not mostly just said out of isolation. I think you mostly bring factual reports and factual analysis to make the case for whatever is it that you're presenting, or at least indicting the government of President Adama Barrow. And I'm just curious, recently there has been a cement crisis in the country, and you've projected that it's going to happen again because of somewhat the monopoly of the cement business in the country, and not only in the Gambia but most places around the world. If you give that power of a very critical part of our economic industry to just few players, a situation like that is always likely to happen. If you would talk very briefly of why you're projecting that a problem of cement shortage is likely going to happen again sometime very soon if a serious policy is not made to address this perennial problem.
Yeah, no, I mean, this one is like the easiest prediction to do. In 2016 and 2019, the Gambia's Competitive Commission, did studies in the Gambia, and they concluded Gasem, Salam, and Jar Oil do not have the capacity to meet the demand. The reason why we've not been having, those shortages before is that you have small-scale importers that are able to import bagged cement from Senegal. These are people that can easily go on a short notice, get a lot of cement across, even if there is a delay of shipments that are coming through the port. But once you go and stop those small-scale importers who are very nimble, and we know for a fact that the government's own competitive commission says that these three bulk importers cannot meet the demand. So it means inevitably at some point, you're going to have a situation, without a doubt, you're going to have a situation where these suppliers cannot be demand. Demand will exceed supply. And when demand exceeds supply, shortages will occur, prices will spike. So this is, the cement crisis we've been having. So it got so bad last year, the government went and removed the restriction on small scale importers, basically admitting to everybody they are the cause of the problem. So the shortage went away. So as soon as the shortage went away, the government decided, well, we'll go back to where we are. In other words, we'll go back to protecting these big, large-scale importers who are all friends of the president. They are all financing NPP, even if it comes at the expense of the Gambian people. So again, for the time being, it's okay because these things happen with a lag. Right now, I'm sure all the cement suppliers have a big stock, but there'll come a time this stock will be depleted. And when it gets depleted, these big importers again will not be able to replenish those stocks in a timely manner. And very soon, inevitably, it could be 2 months, could be 3 months, but there'll be another shortage unless and until the government removes these restrictions on small scale importers. Um, I've been saying this, I've been writing about this since 2019. I've had meetings with government officials, I had meetings with cement importers. Um, you know, this government, if you say something that's not true, they'll immediately come and challenge you. But as you pointed out, when I'm making these statements or these challenges, I make it based on fact. The predictions here, it doesn't require any economic expertise. When there is something that is in high demand like cement and you restrict its supply, the demand will exceed supply, and then you are going to have a shortage. And whenever you have a shortage, the price will spike. Um, this is not an item that we are producing locally where you need to protect domestic industry. So cement is not manufactured in the country. Cement is imported. So an essential commodity that is imported, the goal of the government to protect Gambian businesses and to protect Gambian consumers, the goal of the government is to liberalize that importation as much as possible so that the goods come in and meet people's demand. Because there is no substitute for cement, honestly, as we speak right now. So we need it. So when people, and right now the construction sector in the Gambia, it's really the one that is propping up the economy.
Mhm.
We have a large diasporan population that is sending in $1 billion a year, twice the national budget. And a lot of this remittance goes into house construction. So the demand for cement is very high. So the government should be doing something to ease the supply, not to do the opposite. And now they are doing the opposite for the benefit of three companies only. And why those three companies? Because those three companies are financing Adama Barrow and his government. That is the simple and clear reason for it. And inevitably, now that they've put in this restriction, inevitably we are going to have another shortage. There is no doubt about it. We'll have at some point as these stocks run down, these shipments that come across the border and to the port are not going to are not going to be able to keep up with demand. And at some point, either the government will have to endure people blaming them for the shortage, or they're going to have to again allow restrictions to allow these small scale importers to come in and save the day like they did.
So, would it be fair to make the case that what we're seeing in the Gambia is few individuals who are close to the corridors of power, have connections with the government, are able to control critical sectors of our economy, not just in the cement sector. There are other areas where what looks like there's a monopoly of those industries are happening, even if it comes at the expense of lack of liberalization of our economy, diversification of our economy to have more and more people have access, especially people who have capacity to be involved in these areas. And we know the dangers of these kind of systems. But are you observing a situation like that happening in the Gambia currently?
No, we have. I mean, what's happening in Gambia right now is a classic, case of state capture. We have a few businessmen that are supporting the president and NPP who are given preferential treatment, preferential access. I mean, just to give an example, there was an ADB finance project, $500 million to help rice producers in CRR and URR. This project was given to who? Abubakar Jawara of Gach, another company that has been the beneficiary of many, all sort of special treatments by this government. A lot of articles have been written about this Gach. But here is this company. It went and completely destroyed the rice fields in those communities, and nothing happened. And the company is still working directly with the president's own personal company. The company is getting all special treatment. Like, for instance, when Gach wanted to import basalt, they were given a reserve area to cut down trees. If people hadn't protested, the government was prepared to go and clear hectares of a protected reserve just so that Abubakar Jawara wouldn't have the inconvenience of taking his money and buying or leasing land like every other businessman had to do if they need land for their economic activity. So this sort of thing, there's no doubt about it. It is this government. It's actually, what is actually shocking about is that the government is not even making an effort to hide it. It's blatant. That's what's really shocking about it. But the fact that it's happening, I think the evidence is clear cut and the evidence is undeniable. The government is clearly, um, basically moving using its power for the benefit of few connected businesses. And even if that comes at the expense of the vast majority of Gambians, I think that's something that people need to know, what it says about the current government and why it is very important that change happens this year.
You're a lot into agriculture and you constantly write about it yourself. You do agro farming or agro business, as some people may call it. So you're heavily involved. So you understand it a lot too. So recently you've written about just how non-sustainable the idea of government buying farmers' products, especially rice, and that there could be a better way of handling this. That this is not good. This model that the government is doing is really bad. Ideally, what should that situation look like between the government and the farmers instead of the model that they have right now?
In Our goal here is to have agricultural transformation in the Gambia, and that is let agriculture be a high return activities for everyone that is involved in it. If you take any specific crop, so as we pointed out, I wrote an article about groundnut, for instance, because our current system right now is what we've had since colonial time, which is people grow groundnut, the government buys it, and then it starts with selling it. But if you look at the groundnut value chain, it ranges from the purchasing of input seeds all the way to processing and distribution. The question to ask yourself is, what is the proper role of the government here? If there is something businesses can do, the government shouldn't be doing that. There are so many things the government needs to do. There are some things businesses cannot do, private sector cannot do. Government is the best place to do it. There are some things the businesses can do, and government shouldn't be involved in that. If they are involved in things they cannot do, is a misallocation of resources, and most of the time there'll be corruption. So groundnut right now, because of aflatoxin poisoning and because of low productivity in groundnut, it's not something that there's a return for farmers, and it's fiscally draining for government. So government buys this groundnut. It buys the groundnut at a very poor price. Currently, the price it's offering farmers hasn't changed over the past 3 years. It's still fixed at the same level. But what has been the inflation over the past 3 years? It has been tremendous. Cost has been
Yes.
going up, but the price they are getting for it stays the same. So are they getting any returns? Absolutely not. So the current model is not working. It's something we've been doing since colonial period. So we need to make sure we decolonize our policies. I'm not saying let's decolonize it for decolonization's sake. I'm just saying decolonize it because it's ineffective. It's not working. And that should be obvious to everyone. It's not working. This is the reason why ground cultivation has actually plummeted, because the returns are not there. During Jawara's time, Gambia used to average over 120,000 tons of groundnut per year. Currently, we produce less than 50,000 tons. So currently, the groundnut that we produce is less than half of what we used to produce under the Jawara regime. Why? Because returns are low. So what we don't have to, why should we continue implementing the same policy that hasn't been effective? So that's why in that article I talk about a new way of addressing this. We should stop thinking of groundnut as our main export crop. We import vegetable oil. Almost every vegetable oil, 99% of the vegetable oil consumed in the Gambia is imported. But why should we import it when we already have a large trade deficit? And this importation is costing our dollars to depreciate on a daily basis. This, the, the biggest our imports are food items, basically rice and all other things. So if you take groundnut and you promote local agro processing to turn groundnut into vegetable oil, here is something that costs us millions of dollars a year to import. Here, you cut that import. In the process, you are doing manufacturing, because agro processing is what starts manufacturing in a country. When you do that, Over time, remember, groundnut has all sorts of byproducts. You have groundnut cake, you have groundnut shell, you have all of these things. Processing them can lead to further economic activities. So what that does is, as the returns to groundnut cultivation, in the downstream of the value chain increases, then it will be possible for demand for groundnuts to go up and the price for groundnut to go up, in turn benefiting those growers of groundnut. The role of Gambia government right now in our current context should be to focus on making sure the inputs that farmers need, the constraints to their agricultural productivity are addressed. The downstream area where the private sector can take the role. The processing of groundnut, we shouldn't have the GGC processing groundnuts at a poor rate at Saro. That is a private sector activity. It shouldn't be a government entity. Right now they are not even processing enough, and a lot of the groundnut that's left over is exported. But exported Gambian groundnut doesn't fetch good price because of aflatoxin infestation that we have. So instead of focusing on exportation of that groundnut, that is not going to fetch any good price anyway. How about we focus on producing groundnut oil? This will make sure we cut our imports. The depreciation of our dynasty will be controlled to a certain extent. Then all you need here is not to go and expand GGC's processing in Saro. No, you create incentives for business. This is the role of the private sector. And when the government steps aside, you create this. There is no shortage of companies that will come to process, whether they are local Gambians or Gambians from foreign investors coming in to process groundnut. Because all the inputs that they will need for groundnut, the input which is shell groundnut, there is no problem with that. We can, all the oil that you need for local consumption, we grow enough groundnut to do that. So this is a no-brainer. It just requires looking at the situation that we are in, that we've been doing it for decades, it hasn't worked. We've been doing it for a century, by the way, it hasn't worked. The alternative is not only concept. It's not only something that makes sense conceptually. It's actually very feasible. Proof of concept has happened in a way because Saro has demonstrated that you can process groundnut. So right now, what the government needs to do is step out of the way, create the investment incentives, allow the private sector to come in, process groundnut, focus on improving agricultural productivity in the upstream value chain of groundnut. When that is done, the knock-on effect will be incalculable. Number one, food security. The cost of vegetable oil now will not be based on things that we import, which is going to be, based on the price in foreign currency, but it will be going up because the value of the dust is falling down. No, it will be produced locally. Number two, because it will be produced locally, its prices will not be increasing as imported vegetable oil, which means food security will go up. Our trade deficit will go down, means that our balance of payment problems will now be easily handled. It also means that agro-processing now will be able to create jobs for our young people. Our economy now will go from just being dependent on two sectors, as agriculture and services, and we'll have more diversification. We'll have a growing manufacturing sector. By implementing something like this, you can see, the knock-on effects. So to me, this is one of the things that in our manifesto we focus on significantly. It is there, and in any coalition, this will be one of the policy areas I'm going to push. Instead of aiming for positions or something, I'm going to aim for policy platforms that are relevant for our problems that we face today, that will make sure that come 2027, the economy of the Gambia can far better shape than it is right now.
I've been for a little bit. I suspect maybe it's my internet or yours, but you're very blurred from my end. If he is very clear to you, let us know in the comment section. But I can't see Dr. Gajigo very clearly.
I sense that too, actually. I think connection it could have been on my side.
Yes. So if you maybe just exit and come back on, and I'll admit you again, please.
Okay. All
All
right.
right. Thank you, and then we'll continue. Thank you all for being here. All of you watching on YouTube, appreciate all of you, and those of you on Facebook as well. Please consider subscribing to our YouTube and support what we're doing. But thank you all for being here. And later today, Doc, welcome back. Welcome back.
Yes.
So
Thank you.
we'll continue. Hopefully, I think we have 15 more minutes before I let you go. But the issue of tourism used to be an important part of our economic sector. And again, that's something that you've been writing about and speaking about as well, and the
The
potential
issue of what? Say again.
tourism.
Tourism. Yes. Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, yes, yes. And the airport levy fee that has been there, lots of questions people are raising recently about it. The agreement between, I think the term is Security Port and the Gambia government, how that agreement came into being, is something that I think most Gambians are interested in. What is happening with the Gambian tourism sector, and what is happening specifically in regards to that specific contract that I've referenced?
Well, the tourism sector, I think anyone can tell you, like, you probably, I'm sure there are some people from Seattle who are currently here right now. When they get back, tell them what their impression of Senegambia is right now when they go there. You'll be shocked. It's not going very well at all. I don't know what the figures are in terms of tourism arrivals this year. I'm sure at some point GT board will probably release it. But the tourism sector is, even if the numbers are high, what we have in the tourism sector is like, is this lazy continuation of what's always been the case. Like, oh, let the tourists come, they go to the beach 1-2 weeks, they go back. There hasn't been an attempt to try to diversify what is offered to tourists, to try to see, okay, let's see who are the tourists who come to Gambia. What income bracket do they come from? Are we getting incomes from? Are we getting tourists from a certain income or socioeconomic backgrounds who only when they come they spend only a certain amount? That sort of studies to find out where our tourists are coming from, not only which country, but within UK, where are they coming from? Which region? What age group? What income group? So that we want to make sure that our tourism sector becomes resilient. See, because right now tourists are only coming to Gambia mainly for the beach. But every country in West Africa, coastal West Africa, has a sun just like us and has a beach. So right now, that's not very resilient. I mean, the slightest little shock in the Gambia you have, they will easily have alternatives to go to. In fact, you have a situation which I wrote about where you have tourists coming to Gambia in Gambian hotels, and then they are taking their vehicles going all the way to Fatala, to Senegal, to visit wildlife parks. While whatever is offered in Fatala, we can offer it in the Gambia if only our authorities were, just doing the necessary things. I mean, we have nature reserves, but they have been completely neglected. We have nature reserves that are not actually being marketed to tourists. Even many Gambians don't know we have chimpanzees in the Gambia. We have chimpanzees in Baboon Island, over 100 of them. But I talk to many Gambians who don't know about it because our tourism sector doesn't do a good job of selling these things locally, much less abroad. So the tourism sector is not going very well. And of course, you have this issue of this fee payment at the airport. Very annoying payment. When you are leaving the country or coming into the country, you have to pay some dollars. Of course, we Gambians have no choice. This is our country. We must come back, so we endure it and swallow it. But if you are a foreigner coming in all other countries, you don't go through this constraint. And Gambia is, as far as you know, is not offering you anything special that you can't get from Senegal or other countries. Why bother? I mean, I saw a recent post by Baba Gali Diallo on Facebook talking about some event they wanted to hold here in the Gambia, but one of the reasons for it not taking place was this cost at the airport. It is very, very, it's just shooting oneself in the foot. Not only are you neglecting the resources that you have that can be used to attract tourists from all segments, not only are you neglecting them to prevent the resilience in the tourism sector, but you are going out of your way to in fact increase the barrier to coming. It absolutely makes no sense. So the audit office, and national audit office, actually had a report on this and suggested that it should be renegotiated. Of course, President Barrow went out of his way and said it should not be renegotiated, which is not surprising because this was negotiated straight out of the State House. Was it negotiated by GAIPA or Minister of Industry? It was negotiated by an individual who was reporting directly to Adama Barrow. So we should ask Adama Barrow what is so special about such a badly negotiated bill that it cannot be touched, even though it is really, handicapping our tourism sector. It's just inexplicable. Before even this agreement came into place, the government had to pay the company $4 million US just because the government negotiated badly. There were clauses that they allowed to be included there that shouldn't be included. And now we are stuck with a badly negotiated contract. This is why in our position on tourism, we've indicated that one of the first things that we will do if we are in government is to renegotiate this contract. Of course, this is one of many long lists of badly negotiated contracts that needs to be renegotiated or cancelled.
Why do you think that's the case, though? And sometimes I think, again, you make reference to these points. People think that you are either crazy or that you just enjoy criticizing or accusing this government of things, and people don't take time to go through this. But you take the time to see some of these agreements, at least those that are available in public, or conduct your own personal investigations to understand. And you've in fact been very critical of some of these ministers in terms of their lack of understanding of policies that are beneficial to governments. Why do you think this is always the case? We make these contracts like the bridge in, I think, the Senegambia bridge, for example. You talked about just the dangers that is going to have on our economy for the long term. Among other contracts or agreements the government gets into, all the time it always seems that is to this disadvantage of Gambian people. And so they don't stop. Why do you think that's always the case?
Yeah, I mean, the short answer, I mean, this thing comes because of bad leadership that we have in the country. I mean, when you have an incapable leader, the first manifestation of it is the sort of people they bring around themselves. So look at to put it mildly or diplomatically, the cabinet is, let's just call it subpar. But I can get a much more grammatically correct one. But for the sake of diplomacy, I'll just call them incompetent. When you have incompetent people, the scary thing is, is you are not even aware of your incompetence. So when you don't know something and you are competent, you are comfortable in your skin, you don't have a problem saying, I don't know, if you don't know something. If somebody asks you something you don't know, I am no legal expert. You ask me to go and negotiate a legal contract, I will tell you first and foremost, go and get a capable lawyer. Agreements, legally binding agreements are legal documents. I'm an economist. I know, it can. Let's say I want to sign a legal contract with with another firm on agriculture. I may know a lot about agriculture. I may know a lot about economics, but an agreement that is going to be legally enforceable later is a legal document. You need to go and get people who are capable, who are competent. So the problem that we have is that we have incompetent people in very key positions who are unaware of their level of incompetence. On top of that, they may not actually care that they are not competent to do these things. So when you mix in incompetence and corruption, then you have a very deadly cocktail, and that's what has been happening here. So these people who are negotiating these contracts don't have the competence, and in some cases also don't really care about the results, because as long as they have something that benefits themselves personally, that's what matters. And in a country that is moving forward, you have leaders who are motivated by what is in the national interest. They are patriotic at heart, and those people will make sure that whatever concession they are doing with the private sector, they are doing it in the nation's interest rather than in the personal interest. So the people who negotiated these contracts, if you dig very carefully into it, you will find that personally they benefited. They just don't care what has been the national interest. But the root cause of it here is leadership competence at the very top. Because if you have a competent president, they will make sure that the cabinet, those appointees are all competent. And those cabinet members in their individual portfolios, they will make sure that the people that report to them are also competent, because they'll be held liable otherwise or accountable if things go south. So in this particular case, we have we have an abundance of badly negotiated contracts with very serious consequences to the countries, and there has been zero consequences. In other words, there is no accountability. What that tells you is that we have a serious leadership crisis today in the Gambia.
Look, finally, the subject of migration is not unique to the Gambia. It's something that all around the world is a hot topic right now. But I think we're disadvantaged such that we're a poor country. A lot of young people, especially young intellectuals, when they're accorded the opportunity to leave the country, they leave and they don't come back for 10, 20, or some years, and understandably so. For a small country like the Gambia, I think the net per capita in terms of our young intellectuals or intellectuals that are outside the country is incomparable, or at least it's incomprehensible if you look at bigger countries like Nigeria, for example, because of how small we are and just the amount of qualified or competent or educated people that are, or skilled individuals that are outside the country. And so recently, we've seen a lot of young people also die in the trying to go to the Canary Islands in Europe. It's a big topic in the Gambia, and this place in the Gambia has become a transit point, not a transit point, but people to even begin their journey to try to reach the back, to embark on the back way to go to Europe. And so, as a political entity, what is the GFA's position to position Gambian youths as a central part of their economic plan? Because we may be short of a lot of resources, but we're not short of human capital. We have a lot of that in the Gambia and outside the Gambia. What is your plan in ensuring that youths are able to stay in the Gambia? They're able to use necessary skills to, as an effort to liberalize our economy, to grow the economy, and also add value to the economy.
No, that one is it. In terms of the economic platform of any political party, I would think that that has to appear centrally there, because if it doesn't appear there, then you are not attuned to what is happening in the country. I mean, as you pointed out, the numbers, we don't even, in fact, know all the numbers. Some of these official numbers are probably capturing just a fraction of the people that are leaving our source. And why do we have such a large exodus of our most productive segment of population? Simple reason: there is loss of hope. People don't have hope for the future. It doesn't mean that they are starving. These ones that are going, you don't see anybody who's a bag of skeleton walking into this. They may have enough to eat, but there is, when people are young, they are thinking about the future. They're thinking about how to do to help their families, their future immediate spouses, or the future children that they will have. It is the complete absence of hope, and people are willing to take great amount of risk. And we've seen this. If people are dying, I mean, hundreds are dying in a single accident. What that tells you, that the number that is dying in a whole year. So it means right now there's a complete lack of hope economically. This is an economic crisis. It means, so the solution here has to be an economic-based solution. And if a political party or a leader doesn't recognize that this is an economic problem and doesn't devise economic solutions, then they have no idea about this problem. And therefore, when the time comes, if they are sitting there, this problem will continue. Because it's not as if people have been shot here on a, because they are from a different region or different ethnic group. This is a purely economic problem, which is why, as I've pointed out before, first, agriculture here is important, not because it addresses food security, but because it is key to jumpstarting the economic transformation of the country. It is key to increasing the diversification of the country and creating quality jobs. Right now, we have two sectors only, agriculture and services. They are both low productive. And wage is a function of productivity. When productivity is low, wages will be low. The only way you can make sure that wage level goes up and it provides a livable income for people, quality wages must be driven by increase in productivity. And you need to have that increase in agricultural productivity to create a growth in agro processing and manufacturing so that quality jobs can be increased and can be generated and provided for young people. Number two, human capital must be an important part of your platform. Human capital, what do I mean by that? It means a lot of things, education and health, but I want to focus principally on education and training. Yes, we have schooling, we have almost universal primary schooling, but the quality of education leaves a lot to be desired. We have people going to University of Gambia spending more than 4 years. Why? Because some courses that they need, we don't have lecturers for them. We have people who are qualified to enter University of the Gambia, but they cannot enroll because there are no scholarship opportunities, and the cost of tuition today is completely beyond the means of the average Gambian. So we don't have an education sector that is working for the young people. It's only few Gambians who are qualified who are going to school. There are many people you meet who are smart, they've met the requirement, but they got credit in this subject, but they cannot enroll because they cannot afford the fee. There are no jobs for them to do that will in fact enable them to fee. There is no a loan scheme. There are scholarships, yes, but only a fraction of the students are getting those scholarships. We need to increase those opportunities for young people at the tertiary level, and we need to make sure that the quality of education at the primary and the secondary level, the quality is high. You have now you have let's say close to about 20,000 students that are taking the grade 12 exam, but the percentage that are coming up with higher than credit in all the core subjects is still very low, especially compared to countries like Ghana that are using the same exam that we are using. So it means the quality of education in the country is very low, and it's not surprising that teachers are striking. We just had some teachers strike recently. You go to some schools in rural areas. I was recently in Fodekunda. I was in Bakadaji recently. You do not have sufficient teachers' quarters. You are sending teachers to teach in rural areas, in villages where there are no rental apartments, and you don't have housing for them. Do you think those teachers will be focused on teaching when they don't even know where they will sleep? We have a lot of schools today where teachers in rural areas don't have teachers' quarters. So when teachers are moved far away from their home, you know, you have this a basic necessity like shelter is not there. Should you be surprised that those teachers are not performing at their best, or the allowances they are supposed to get? Some of them go for 6 months without receiving the allowances that they are supposed to receive. I recently spoke to a teacher who's posted in Tumanda region just after Basi. 6 months they've been there before they receive some of their allowances. So, in fact, it should be surprising to me that we are not seeing, more of these teachers trying to go on strike. So, the situation for your average teacher in the country is actually really, really poor, and it could be really improved. So we need to make sure that the investment that is needed for education and training at all levels is there in terms of inputs, in terms of teaching, in terms of scholarships, so that our youth, when they graduate from university or from high school, the required human capital, they are fully equipped with it.
Well, Dr. Gajiko, it's always so wonderful to chat with you. Your understanding of the issues that beset our country always blows my mind off, because I think everybody can agree that you don't have to agree with Dr. Usman politically, but you can accept that he has a very good understanding of what's happening back home, not only in the Gambia but around the African continent. So he's a frequent guest here. He's going to be coming back as the political atmosphere gets more and more interesting towards the December elections. And I would really love to talk to the veteran politician BB Dabo at some point, hopefully, if you're able to help me facilitate, because I think he has a lot of important perspectives to share on the Gambian political history. So once again, thank you so much, and I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to be here, and I'll be more than happy to link you up with BB Dabo.
Thank you so much. You have a wonderful rest of your day, sir.
Thank you.